Hey Changemaker! Welcome to Learning for Good, the only podcast that teaches nonprofit leaders how to leverage training to drive performance, improve capacity, and fuel their mission impact. Do you ever feel like your nonprofit is growing, but your people just aren't keeping up? Or like you're fixing the same problems over and over? Do you wonder how to build confident, capable staff who know how to lead, not just execute? If we haven't met yet, I'm Heather, and I know how hard it can feel to get people to do what's expected of them. Trust me, I have 3 kids. I've tried telling people what to do and how. I've tried the traditional training approaches, and I realized that just doesn't work. And that's when I started researching what does work. Now, I help mission-driven leaders use learning to drive performance, build capacity, and make change that lasts. And I'm sharing it all on this podcast. So block your calendar, turn off your Teams or Slack chat, and let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. When my kids were babies, I spent a lot of time thinking about their sleep schedule. They say sleep begets sleep. So if you want your child to sleep, they have to sleep more, not less. Once they get overtired, it's harder to get them to sleep. So what this meant was if my baby missed a nap, they were overtired for their next nap. So that second nap would be shorter. And if they had a shorter second nap, they were overtired for bedtime and they wouldn't sleep well that night. It was like a domino effect. And it all started with that first domino falling. The reverse was also true. So if they napped well, they slept well overnight. Now, why am I talking about baby sleep schedules? It's been a while since I've even been in that phase, but that same domino effect exists when we measure our training. If we can get that first domino to fall, the rest can follow. But it all starts with that first domino. We have to get each domino right to see impact. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What does proof of impact really look like? Let's dive in. It's Learning for Good. What does proof of impact really look like in training? First, let me say, measuring training often feels pretty complex. So I'm going to provide some ideas and tips in this episode today, and I can link to a few other episodes as well. But my best advice is to get in the room with other learning and development leaders and talk about measurement. Find out what other people are doing and how they're doing it and see what you can apply to your own work. If this sounds like a discussion that you want to be a part of, join us for our next Nonprofit L&D Collective networking event. Bring a measurement question and let's get it answered for you in real time with real-world experience from a diverse group of nonprofit L&D pros. I'll drop the link to that networking event in the show notes. But for now, let's revisit this concept of measurement. So what does proof of impact really look like in training? Measuring your training is like a domino chain. And each domino in that chain plays a role. So we have participation, we have satisfaction, we have knowledge, we have behavior change, and we have impact. Participation, satisfaction, knowledge, behavior change, and impact. And I see nonprofit L&D pros who focus solely on the front end of this chain, right? Maybe you are into this as well. I've seen people who only focus on participation and satisfaction. And that makes sense because these two things, participation and satisfaction, tend to be the easiest things for us to measure. So these leaders might say something like, it's too hard to measure behavior change and impact because there are just too many variables to whether anything actually changes. And I feel that sometimes, right? But 2 dominoes don't complete a chain. So on the other side of that, I hear other nonprofit L&D leaders who get so focused on this end of the chain with behavior change and impact that they ignore the dominoes at the beginning of the chain. And I'm sure I've been guilty of this too. Leaders like this might say things like, I don't care if they liked the training. I care if it changed something. The intention is good, but again, two dominoes don't make a domino chain. And then poor knowledge or knowledge transfer. This one just gets overlooked altogether. But I think we actually need each domino in the chain. And here's why. So, participation. This is our first domino in the chain. And why is it important when we think about proof of impact? If people don't show up, they can't change. They won't know what needs to change or why it's important or how to change it. So we need to know that people showed up. Now, most nonprofits measure this pretty automatically or with very little manual processes through their LMS. Some are still using a much more manual process with spreadsheets. So if that's you, you're not alone. We've all been through that pain. I know spreadsheet tracking is tedious and probably feels pretty pointless. But remember, this is the first domino. And we need this domino to start the chain. Now, second domino is satisfaction. And this is one that I have been guilty of not caring about as much, but I'm starting to realize how important it really is. When my kids, I have 3 kids, when my kids learn something new and they are excited about it, they keep practicing. If they learn something new and they don't enjoy it, they stop. So let's think about this. The first time my oldest daughter got on a bike, it did not go well. She was scared. She fell. She did not feel the wind in her hair. She did not get that taste of freedom from bike riding. And so she didn't learn to ride. It was years later when we hired someone to come in and help her when it finally clicked. And then she learned to love riding her bike. That's when it started to change her behavior. And she started asking, can I go ride my bike? That practice began. But not until she got excited about riding her bike. Another example, when my oldest daughter goes off to summer camp, they make everything fun, right? I don't know if you went to summer camp as a kid, but they make everything fun while they're there. Cleaning the tables, let's make it a race. Lining up to leave the cabin, we're going to sing songs. And because they've made it fun, she not only complies, but she does a good job. And it's easier than when she's at home, when I ask her to clean up, right? And when I ask her to get her stuff and get out the door, it's easier for them than for me because they've made it fun. She enjoyed it. Or let's think about my youngest, the other side of the spectrum here. She recently learned compound words. And she gets so excited because she'll say the first part of the word and reach out her right hand. And then she'll say the second part of the word and reach out her left hand. And then she'll say the compound word and clap her hands together. She's so excited to share the compound word with you when she claps those hands together. It's fun. It's exciting. And because of that, she's constantly looking for new compound words. But for some reason, when we teach adults, we forget about the importance of fun and excitement. The energy we bring to training can make a huge difference on learning, as does how we feed them or the temperature of the room, which we often downplay because it's just satisfaction. But we do often need them to be satisfied or engaged or comfortable to actually learn and to want to continue practicing after the training event ends. So satisfaction scores aren't pointless. They are an important part of the domino chain. And We mostly measure satisfaction through surveys. Now, knowledge transfer. This is our overlooked domino. We focus a lot on either end of this domino chain and overlook this one in the middle, which is funny because a lot of nonprofit training still focuses on knowledge and not behavior change, which is why I spend so much time talking about behavior change. And I have been guilty of downplaying knowledge transfer as well, because I know that knowledge doesn't equal behavior change. And yet, if I don't know something, I don't know to do it. So it is actually an essential domino. I think our challenge is that some learning designers and subject matter experts want to insert a whole bunch of knowledge dominoes in hopes that behavior will change. And we know that doesn't work. But we do need some knowledge gain to see behavior change. Once I know how sleep impacts my health, I want to prioritize my sleep and take actions to do so. Once I know that organizational change is coming, I want to figure out how it will impact me. So knowledge is important and we should measure it. Did people learn something? Now, we often measure this through surveys as well. And one way I've done this successfully is by offering a pre and a post survey, both at the end of a training. So instead of asking people to assess prior to the training and then again at the end of the training, I ask them to assess one time at the end of the training. And I ask them to reflect back, hey, prior to this training, I could do XYZ. After this training, I can do XYZ. Or I knew XYZ, I now know XYZ, right? That XYZ is your learning objective. So you're just turning that learning objective into a statement that they can rate themselves against. So if you're writing strong learning objectives, this domino actually becomes really easy to measure. And again, it's essential. It's that middle domino. Now, behavior change and impact are the next two dominoes, and they are often more complex to measure. Behavior change. What do we mean by that? Did the person go back to their job and implement what they learned? And did they stick with it? That's basically what we want to know. When we do it in surveys, we can ask learners to respond and self-report on that behavior change. It might be a little bit self-biased with self-reporting. So I found that pairing that survey with a supervisor or a direct report survey is a great way to have a more well-rounded and accurate picture of the change. So one survey goes to the learner, have you implemented this? And one survey goes to their supervisor or their direct report, has this person implemented this? Now, that's one way to do it is through one or multiple surveys. Another way to do this is through observations. So whether that be the learning and development team, HR team doing observations, or the manager doing observations and reporting back in some way, that is also an option to observe whether behavior has changed. Okay, now we have our behavior change domino in place. We can start to see impact. So what do we mean by impact? What did this actually change for the organization or the individual? Now, typically, I see nonprofits use existing reporting structures to determine impact. So things like financial data, employee data, some sort of progress report that already exists, right? And then we try to find the correlation between the training and that existing data. This is the domino we all want to get to, right? We all want to prove our impact, but it's over here on the far right. And how do we knock down this domino? We have to start at the beginning of the chain. If you've ever set off a domino chain, you know that if one of these dominoes is not in place, that final domino will not fall. And that's why we have to start with things like participation and satisfaction before we can get to impact. All five are important, and all five help paint the picture of impact. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.
Hey friend, was this episode helpful for you?
Did you like what you heard? Do you want more content like this? Here are 3 things you can do. Hit subscribe. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts or your podcast app of choice. Share this episode with a colleague. This means so much to me personally. I read every review, but it also helps me learn what content you like most so I can create more of what you want. All right, turn that Teams or Slack chat back on when you're ready, and I'll see you next time on Learning for Good.